Then we had the cognitive experiential domain. And so, anybody have any memories from this one, or have you repressed it all? So what types of things did we discuss in the cognitive experiential domain?
Learning.
Okay, yeah, so learning, thought processes, things like that. Perception and interpretation. One of the constructs that I like best, that you probably remember from this one, is field dependence versus field independence. So we had the hidden, it was the EFT, the embedded figures test, with the hidden pictures inside there. That just suggests that how people perceive the world on a very basic level impacts a wide range of things, from their choice of social situations to their choice of career and so on. We also talked about the self. So self-concept was the last part of this unit, and there is a lot of research that is starting to investigate the nature of self-concept and the nature of identity. And there are a lot of unanswered questions that remain in this area. And it can be a little philosophical in nature. This is one area of psychology that does have some deeper roots to old school philosophy, like the ancient Greeks, because they thought about this stuff too. So researchers are just still trying to struggle with some very basic fundamental questions, like coming up with a really clear definition of identity and learning exactly how identity is formed. I mean, to some extent we know that we are a product of our experiences, but that's a pretty broad statement. We don't know about how specific life events impact someone's identity. And we also need to do more to understand which aspects of identity change with time and which stay the same. And we talked about this a little bit in our, I think it was back in the dispositional domain, when we talked about personality disposition, our personality traits over time, how some things will change a little bit depending on people's age, but then once you hit age 50, everything's pretty much set in stone. So they're still trying to figure out how that relates to identity. And then, just more broadly, we need to know when identity is more likely to change. And I would guess it's going to be earlier in life. You tend to be a little bit more flexible, as we saw with the studies of personality traits. And exactly how changes in identity occur. So some of the more socially based theories, which I think are really cool, probably because I'm biased, I'm a social psychologist, suggest that the company that you keep has a big influence on your identity. So you tend to act in specific ways based on what your friends do and what your colleagues do. And so if you change jobs or change towns, then your identity is going to change a little bit as well. So one approach that's being taken to this study of identity is called the narrative approach. So the idea here is that identity is essentially like a story that we tell about ourselves. So each person has a unique set of experiences that they have had over the course of their lives. And so your identity could essentially be the product of all those unique experiences. And one other idea coming out of this domain is the notion that goals and emotions, so the things that we aspire to and the way that we feel, might be incorporated into how we perceive the world. So just to give you an example, all of you currently share a goal. What goal do you have? Yeah, you want to graduate, you want to get your degree, right? least I hope you want to do that. If you actually come to class regularly enough, and I do recognize just about everyone here, so you're regular attendees, then you definitely are working in pursuit of that goal. And so you're going to have a different outlook on a number of different social issues just based on your position in life. You have certain career aspirations based on where you are, and so that's going to impact the way that you perceive a lot of social issues like government funding and things like that. A lot of things getting into politics because of your situation, your current life goals. All right, so our next domain, and we're cruising right along here. I think we're going to end relatively early today, but we have the social and cultural domain. So what were some of the different things that we examined in this part of the class? Social and cultural domain.
Emotions.
What's that?
Emotions.
Emotion, I think that was actually in the cognitive experiential section, but emotions are pretty important.
How society has formed you to be like a certain way, like formed thoughts and processes.
Yeah. So that was particularly part of the cultural domain, or the cultural perspective, looking at evoked culture, which we'll talk about more in just a second. But generally speaking, this domain looked at the impact that other people have on our personality and our behavior. So we talked about those processes of selection, the people we choose to be around us, evocation, the feelings and types of traits and behaviors that other people bring forth from us, and manipulation, when people actively try to make us do certain things. Okay? And so these folks will probably continue to try to understand those interactions between personality traits and situations. And this is an important goal to both social and personality psychology, which I've mentioned a couple of times throughout the semester that these fields are pretty closely linked. So the most highly regarded journal in our field is the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. And so if you really want to come to a complete understanding of behavior, it helps to look at both the situation, social psychology, and personality. Right? And there are just a whole bunch of different interactions that occur. When you have different people with different personalities in different situations, there are just dozens of variables that you can measure. And so there's a lot of research that has yet to be done to try to enhance our understanding there. And there are probably going to be more cross-cultural studies. To some extent, the internet is making these types of things easier to do. You can imagine how difficult cross-cultural studies were back in the day when you just had to kind of communicate things by phone or mail. But fortunately, those types of technological advances are allowing for more efficient and effective communication between different cultures. And so evocation is one area in particular where there is a lot of promising research to be done. We also talked about things like cultural universals, but do you all remember some of the specific examples of evocation that we used in class? Evoked culture? Evoked personality traits?
The southern white male.
Yeah, so does anybody remember what that theory, that hypothesis was called?
Like the honor society made them more aggressive.
Yeah, the culture of honor. Yeah, so what was the underlying aspect of cultures that were supposed to create a situation such that people are more likely to take offense to public insults? Yeah, herding economies. So supposedly if a society has a resource, a prominent resource that can be easily stolen, then people will be more protective of their public image, their reputation. Yeah. Any other examples of evoked culture that y'all remember, or evoked personality traits? remember we had talked about mate preferences. So what was the type of situation in which you tend to see people, you see it leading people to have more short-term mating orientations? Y'all remember?
When their parents were dysfunctional, or had a dysfunctional relationship, like they divorced.
Yeah, so that was one aspect of it. Children from with parents who were harsh and inconsistent. What was it that you were saying?
Broken homes.
Oh yeah, children from broken homes are more likely to grow up to have a more short-term mating orientation.
How much time their parents invested in them or something?
Yeah. So that's one thing that leads back to those basic factors, like having to do with the way the parents treat them, which can be altered depending on if someone's from a broken home or a family that the parents are still together and they don't fight or anything. Yeah. All right. So